to be a part of this PaveWise conference, something new, a different way to approach things. We're all trying to learn what's involved in these types of endeavors, and really looking forward to sharing some information about what we're doing with others through the CP Tech Center. And I think that I'm hopeful that the information I'm going to be able to share with you will be useful as you work on some of your own endeavors in Florida or wherever you might be from. So with that, I think we'll move into the presentation. I entitled it as Working Together to Advance Concrete Pavement Technology. As Monica mentioned, I've been involved in several sectors of the industry over the years. I worked for a contractor, worked for 30 contractors for 30 some years, and I've always felt we had a tremendous amount of cooperation with our agencies here in the state of Iowa, and I see that in some other parts of the country, and it's really where you start to see advancements being made. It's kind of interesting that we started a concrete pavement technology center back in about 2000, and it was born out of concerns about durability on some of our pavements that we had built in the 1990s. And we kind of approached it from not so much of a collaborative effort. We were meeting with the DOT, and what we found out is the DOT decided that they were going to hire someone to look at the issue. The industry hired someone to look at the issue. The answers were not necessarily the same. And so we spent the next 3 or 4 years trying to figure out what are we going to change so that we don't have this problem occurring again. It wasn't a huge problem, less than probably 5 to 10% of the roads that we were building, but it still was a problem for that specific improvement. And so we started to think that we had to do a better job of working together from day one, from the start, get to the table, decide how we want to approach it, who's going to help us figure out what's going on. We need to involve our academics in that process. And so we went to Iowa State. I with the industry and several others, Jim Cable, who was at Iowa State at the time, and Dale Harrington, who many of you may have heard of or know, Tom Cackler, who was the chief engineer at the DOT. And we decided that we would establish a center for the 3 different parties and then move on from that. It was so successful that what we ended up doing was in 2005, we went to the American Concrete Pavement Association and also to the PCA and several other organizations to see if they wanted to work with us, because much of the work that we were doing was very applicable to all over the country. So we established a National Concrete Pavement Technology Center in 2005, and that's what I want to share with you a little bit today, is some of the things that we're doing, what we're involved in, and how you can benefit from some of our products and also become involved with us through that type of a collaboration. What we're really trying to do is to make a difference in concrete pavements through collaboration. Some of the ways that we do that is through problem solving. We're constantly answering phone calls about what went wrong here, or how can we help you. We have a large group of people that we call upon, experts from around the country, consultants and others who help us in those deliberations. And oftentimes we put a group together to try and solve some of those problems. We are not a consultant per se. We just try to provide information that will be helpful to contracting agencies, to contractors, and to whomever might be interested in the principles of concrete paving. We also are proud to implement the latest and greatest, some of the newest technology. I've worked very hard in the 1980s towards how we can open traffic to a project, open a project to traffic much sooner. We came up and worked a lot with what Federal Highways had then, with some equipment that was called the maturity meter. We worked on that. Our contractors in Iowa liked it because they could get on the project later and or sooner than they would have earlier. And so It was a new technology that we introduced here, but you know what? It didn't really take off around the country until here the last few years, and we're still working on that. But we need to share that information and to try and to so that everybody can benefit from it. We're also saving money or trying to save money by doing some good things. We're looking at cement contents and that type of thing that might give us just as good of a mix without over cementing the mix and saving us a little bit of money. And we're also trying always to build better concrete pavements. As I mentioned, we're doing it through collaboration. We look at ourselves as being the nexus that brings the group together of agency, industry, and academia. And I'll give you a little bit of a feel for how we've done some of that in the past. So how are we accomplishing this? We are producing technical products that the industry and the agencies are asking for. We're doing a large amount of education. Of course, much of that was live. That's changing a little bit now, and we're not sure how long that will be. We're doing a lot of applied research and implementation, working with things like internal curing. We're doing a lot of work with fibers and overlays and things like that. We also have independent expertise, as I mentioned, with consultants and others, even within our own staff. Our staff is not real big, but Dr. Peter Taylor heads it up, and he worked for CTL Labs, has had experience in the industry from that perspective, but he also is a professor here at Iowa State, and so we're glad to have him in that leadership position as part of academia. I worked in the industry much very oriented to the contracting industry. Steve Treach, who works with us, had worked for ACPA, had worked for 2 different DOTs, and also in the steel industry. And then most recently, we added John Adam, who was our recently retired chief engineer in Iowa. So we've got a good mix of our staff and our consultants so that we really can respond to the whole of that tripartite group. Our goal is to be recognized as a leading resource for anyone that's needing concrete pavement information. Who's our audience? Obviously, it's state highway agencies, local agencies from around the country. The biggest effort that we've had is our ability and our opportunity to facilitate the National Concrete Consortium, which is a group of 34 state DOTs in the Illinois Tollway that gather once every 6 months to talk about concrete issues, to talk about concrete advancement and that type of thing. Part of that group also is the industry representation, whether it's from PCA with the cement industry, the American Concrete Pavement Association, the National Ready Mix Association, and obviously Federal Highways, who we do a lot of work with, is a large part of that. It's actually a pooled fund effort that provides for travel for some of the limited number of the state individuals to attend and to be a part of it. As you can see, Florida has been a part of that for several years, and so we're very, very glad to have that type of a group to work with. And when we've met live, as we normally did, we certainly developed a lot of relationships and have become much better collaborators in trying to advance the art and the science of concrete pavement. So what are we up to? Some of the things that we've been doing in the last couple of years and throughout is workshops around the country, webinars, conferences. This map that you see actually shows some of the areas where we did workshops and presentations with part of our work with the NC Squared Pooled Fund. And the topics that we talked about at some of those workshops include a publication that we have is Integrated Materials Construction Practices Manual. We give 1-day or 2-day webinars on best practices, materials and mixtures, recycled concrete aggregate, FDR and CSM. We do inspector training. In fact, I believe it was just almost exactly this time a year ago that we were down in Florida and did inspector training in 2 different locations, working with the Florida Concrete Products folks and the DOT representation. Had a great tour of the lab and got to see some of the work that they're doing. We're also very involved, as Monica mentioned, in overlays and pavement preservation. Another program that we kind of illustrates what we do was the concrete overlay field application program that we were involved with in a previous cooperative agreement that's now expired, but with Federal Highway Administration. It was a 5-year agreement, and over that 5-year period, we were really working diligently to get the word out to state DOTs and others about the potential for concrete overlays as an alternative to resurfacing. We visited 35 sites and wrote reports. We did a lot of specific project reviews, looking to make sure that we were picking the right candidates if somebody wanted to build a project. We had 31 workshops, and again, you can see we covered a great portion of the nation, and we did work on overlays or talking and presentations on overlays in Florida too. So I think Eric Farabee and maybe several others were involved with that presentation. But now it's 2020, and what a year of significant change for all of us. And so we're really trying to figure out what these changes mean. How do we get the word out to people to share the information that we've done so much here in the past few years? We're not traveling, obviously. I was out at the Con Expo event in Las Vegas on March 12th. I took one of the last flights out of Las Vegas, I think, before the shutdown occurred. Got home, and I was told when that was on a Thursday. I was told on Friday that I didn't need to come to the office because they were concerned whether I might have contracted the COVID virus. I didn't, fortunately, but I did stay home, and then they called me Monday to say we weren't coming back to work. We would be working from home for an extended period of time. And now that extended period of time seems to be that it might be at least until the end of this year. We do get into the office occasionally, but certainly nothing like we did previously. So we're doing a multitude of webinars, and I'm sure you are too. Online meetings nearly every day. It's really changed the way that we do our business. Email is unlimited. It keeps coming in. That's our communication, and it certainly has grown significantly. We're working from home, but the good news for us is our lab is still open. They're practicing precaution, but they are still doing some work. So we've got some research going on and some good things to be excited about down there. I mentioned the National Concrete Consortium and the importance of that for our collaboration events. We've always had in the past those live meetings every 6 months, but this fall, first part of September, we ended up doing a virtual meeting. I think that it worked pretty good. Here are some of the things that we found out about it. The strength was that we had 350 attendees every day for 3 days. We did 3 hours a day over 3 days. If we would have had the live meeting, we probably would have had somewhere between 150 to 200 participants. So we really grew the audience significantly for this event because they didn't have to travel. We had very focused presentations, which were great. We had focus on alkali silica reactivity, lightweight cellular concrete. We talked about PEM tests and state experiences, dowels and tie bars, and project updates, and which is similar to the type of agenda that we would have in our live meetings. The weakness, obviously, is the discussion is very suppressed. With a group that big, it's very difficult to have a lot of good discussion back and forth. And the other thing is it's become a very social event for us because groups get together and they go out and they talk about concrete and other things in the evening and or out in the hallway and that type of thing. So we miss that, and it's going to be hard to figure out how we would ever replace that. Hopefully we'll be getting back to some of that here in the near future. Where next? Provisionally, we're looking at Nashville, Tennessee as our location for our spring meeting in April. We're still kind of waiting to see what happens, you know, with the virus and that type of thing. But one of the questions that we're starting to kick around now, because of the attendance that we had, should we be considering some way to do a hybrid type conference where we'd have not only a virtual availability, but also for the live meeting itself. So that's some things that we're anxious to hear from our sponsors about that and kind of decide what we're going to do in the future. Another thing that we've done since the clamp down due to COVID was we got together with ACPA in March and started to determine or talk about how could we work together to get some of this information out during this time, especially at that time. You know, almost every or a lot of people were working at home, and so we decided that we would work with some of our other groups like NC Squared, Federal Highway Administration, to develop a webinar series that we did starting in April. We went every week in from April through June. We called it Concrete Pavement Technology Tuesday, and we had topics. Some of them were multiple weeks that we talked about. I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks on overlays. We had 2 weeks of presentation, 2 weeks that we did the 2 different presentations on ADA compliance. We had preservation as a topic, smoothness of pavements, how we're doing with smoothness, joint detailing, and just this yesterday, actually, we had a webinar, a once a month webinar that was on resilience. In fact, Jim Mack, who's one of the speakers for your event, will be speaking, I think, on that topic tomorrow. So, but what we decided as we got into the construction decision or this construction season was that we would back off and do this for once a month. So we're doing that through December with the idea that maybe in January we may go back to 2 times a month, and because we've got a lot of topics that our sponsoring groups have felt that we needed to cover. So we're looking at that real seriously. So who did we reach in those? This is interesting. We typically had 600 to 800 attendees at those webinars. We were blown away. We had never thought for a minute that we would have that money. Part of the credit for doing that was the chapter state paving associations. They went out locally, and I'm sure they did that in Florida and all over the country, and talked to their customers because they couldn't go see very well. Talk to them about getting on these webinars and gaining some information on concrete pavements. You could even get PDHs, but that, I don't think, as we made a little survey, I don't think that was the driving force behind it. We did recordings. All of the webinars are recorded online. They're on our website. And as I said, we've established future topics. We've got a long list, but we've got the topics set up actually through December, and you can see that here. And I think many of you probably are getting notices about that. So let's look at some other activities. Of course, at the same time, we're doing, responding to webinar invitations such as this one today. We've talked to the Nevada Ready Mix. Some of the topics we have talked about is IMCP, that Integrated Materials Construction Practices. You can see a long list there. I'm not going to read them all to you. One of the interesting things that we're addressing right now, and we did for the Aggregate and Ready Mix Association up in Minnesota, was to talk about how we survive a post-fly ash world. I think we all realized that the coal-fired power plants are dwindling now. We don't have as much fly ash being generated. We're looking at some other alternatives for that, for some of the fly ash that's been around for a while, and we're doing some actual work through that through a cooperative agreement with Federal Highways. But we're trying to provide a message that don't give up. If we can't use or can't get fly ash, there are some other things that we can do to really assure pavement performance. Some of the implementations that we're doing, Mike Prahl is going to talk to you about a new generation of concrete pavements, which is performance engineered mixtures. What we did more than 10 years ago through NC Squared, starting to have conversations about, did our specifications really tell us whether the concrete's going to be durable? We realized that we really needed to develop specifications that call for what we really need, based on measuring the things that matter the most. And one of the ones that we knew that we've used for years and years gives us some sense of maybe consistency, but slump doesn't really tell us how a pavement's going to perform from a durability standpoint. So we want to do these measurements with tests at the right time. We're now collecting data and evaluating the tests nationwide. This was an example, another example of us partnering through a transportation pooled fund project. You can see that we have 19 states, Maine just recently joined us, that are working together in this PEM pooled fund. There's still opportunity to join. If you're interested, as a state DOT, I think it may be going on for, technically we got 2 more years, but I think we may have to reset our sights for the future and might have another endeavor like that going on beyond the 2 years. We're doing a lot of data working with federal highways very closely on this, and Mike will get into that. But what we're looking at now, as we've been into this, is we're doing some regional meetings to try and share information about what other states are doing, to try and encourage one another. We've involved industry and agency in those. We're refining some test methods. We're looking at training, how we're going to continue to do that in the future, and then also looking ahead at once we talk and establish our efforts in mixes and mix design, we need to look at construction too as part of the whole combination of things that make our pavements good. We are in a new 5-year cooperative agreement, was signed in 2018 with Federal Highway Administration. It's a $9 million 5-year agreement, and the focus areas that were defined by Federal Highways in this Advancing Concrete Pavement Technology Solutions agreement are extending pavement life and performance. We're looking at different ways that we can do that, reducing initial and life cycle costs, accelerating construction techniques, especially in the concrete side. Design criteria and specifications are another part that we're looking at, and non-destructive testing. Those all fall into the 5 groups of areas that we're looking. And then of course, in order to then get that information out and to implement some of that new information, we have to have a good technology transfer system. And we're looking at some of the new training that's out there, new opportunities. Most of our publications are now going to e-manuals. We're not doing a lot of printing anymore. We're working with academia as to how they might get information out through their classes. We've always had and will hopefully continue the live training, but we also know that e-training is going to be important, and we do all of that through teams of people that are working with us. In that, some of the products that are coming out here very soon in this are fly ash tech brief that was addressing the use of reclaimed fly ash in highway infrastructure. In fact, I think that was just put up on our website this past week. Same group that worked on that is working on a recycled concrete aggregate tech brief. And then we're working on a big endeavor. Tara Cavallini in North Carolina and a team of people are working on a QC guide with PEM. Mike Prawl, who my compadre who's going to speak after me, has been very involved in getting that to happen. We're hopeful to have the final, or for the draft of that to be available here in the next week or two and start to doing the reviews so that we can get it out on the street. We also are updating the CP Tech Center's overlay guide. This will actually be the 4th edition of this guide that has been so popular over the years, and then also working on preservation guides. Currently, there's $2.3 million under contract, and our part on this, in order to get the contract, we had to offer a match, and we were able to get support from industry and others to be able to say that we could do a 25% match. So we've got 20 consultants that are involved in it from all around the country. I noticed that Tyler Lay is speaking on your program tomorrow. Tyler's working with us not only in this endeavor, but also he and Jason Weiss and Tom Van Dam. Jason's from University of Oregon, Tyler from Oklahoma, and Tom Van Dam with NCE Consulting out in the western part of the country. They're all consultants that are working with us on PEM and some of these other endeavors. The other thing that we're excited about is working with Federal Highway Administration. After several years of suggesting that maybe overlays might be a good topic for everyday accounts, we finally got overlays as a topic for the EDC 6. It's overlays, both concrete and asphalt, but it gives us an opportunity to work through that medium to try and get the word out about the alternatives that are out there and what those could do for you within your own system. Implementation in the field, one of the things that we often talk about, we've got a consultant that's doing work with real-time smoothness. We've got equipment that actually hooks onto the paver and can tell us what the smoothness is at the time that we're building the pavement. We've been doing on-site demos, developing guide specs. We had a 90-minute technical webinar that we would share, and we have provided on-call technical support. Gary Fick, who's with TransTech, has been kind of the lead on that, and it actually is one of the things that we did in a previous cooperative agreement, and we're continuing it in the current cooperative agreement. Whoops, I got too fast there. Just a note that this last week or within the next week or so, we are going to be entering a cooperative agreement also with the Federal Aviation Administration. PCA and ACPA have been working with us on that, and there will be a $3.5 million contract for research. The CP Tech Center will act as the research managers, and we're trying to get focused on what they think the topics are now that they would like, FAA would like to work on, and some of the things that have come to the top are not unlike some of the stuff that we've done with federal highways, include ASR and mixture proportioning. Our hope in this is maybe that we can try to do a little collaboration between federal organizations too, and make everybody's money go a little bit farther and advance the industry even further. We've got a lot of other projects that we've been working on, some IDIQs and that type of thing. And so I'm not going to read down through all those, but you can get a sense of what we've been doing. So as far as research is concerned, just very quickly, we don't do all the research by any means. In fact, we do some research, but a lot of it is going out through these cooperative agreements to other folks. Certainly that will be the case with the FAA contract. We won't, as CP Tech Center, be doing any of the research per se. We're just administering it, but we're doing some stuff in our lab with mixture proportioning, air void systems, salt scaling, the effect of chemistry in salt scaling, internal curing, overlay performance. We're doing a lot of work with fibers. We did a section last year on a county paving job where we did no joints. Had fibers but no joints to just see how that would perform. There's a similar monitoring project that we're monitoring up in Minnesota that you can see in that picture there, that roundabout that had limited number of joints in it. So we're monitoring that and see how that works with the fibers. We're doing some work with penetrating sealants, primarily to develop a protocol that if states want to use these types of sealants, especially in some of the ice zones where they've had some joint deterioration, how do you determine what the right product is? And we're trying to put some information together through a project and doing that. And then also doing a lot of work on vibration, trying to determine how we know if it's right, what is right, and also looking at the possibility of doing some real-time emphasis on that type of work. So, okay, finishing up. Here's what we've got, a lot of manuals and guides. I'm going to just kind of thumb through a few of the different publications. You know, I already mentioned the overlay guide. We've got a recycling concrete pavement materials. This concrete pavement distress and assessment solutions is a large manual that our former director, Dale Harrington, and the team have put together that really talks about the different types of issues that you could have with a concrete pavement, identifies those, talks about why they might happen and how you would address them if you happen to have those types of problems. We also got another companion document on concrete overlay construction documents. And then I mentioned the IMCP manual, actually, which was just published in the second edition here this past year. So those are all available on our website. Some of them are in print, but all of them are certainly available as PDF publications on our website. Here are some examples of the research reports, studies, and guide specs that we put together. Non-woven geotextile materials. Dr. Jeff Ressler at the University of Illinois has done a lot of work with us on fiber reinforced concrete, put together a system, a software system, so we can evaluate the needs, what we need for different designs. And then also Dr. Taylor has done a lot of work on guide specifications for internally curing concrete. Another effort through NC Squared has been the CP roadmap, and we send out or develop moving advancements into practice. We call them MAP briefs, and I think we're up to around 20 or so. Again, all of those are on little short briefs on different subjects. They can be found on the website. Upcoming, we're working right now with PCA on a cement stabilized soils publication. In fact, I think that's now ready to go to the printer or will be up on the website. Lightweight cellular concrete, another one that we're working with PCA on. And then we're also talking with the National Ready Mix Concrete Association and the Ready Mix Concrete Research and Education Foundation about the possibility of doing a second edition for bonded concrete overlays for parking lots. It'll be an update of a manual that we developed in 2012. Of course, when you're in this business, you know that things do change over 8, 9, 10-year period. So the first place to check for concrete information, if I'm doing my message right today, is check out our website. There's a lot there, cptechcenter.org. I think you'll find a lot of detail. If you can see up in the banner there, you know, we've got research projects that we're showing, publications, and the various different resources, things that we're doing. If you want to know more about PEM, there's a link to our PEM portion of the website. There's one for overlays. Get on there sometime and just see what's there, so that if you need some info, you can know that you could find it there. We've just here in this last month or so, we've inherited the ability to track a little bit where the hits are on our website, and you can see in that little map in the left-hand corner that it isn't just a national concrete pavement technology center. We're really also getting quite a bit of activity on an international basis. A couple other ways to stay in touch with us, to get involved, is you can subscribe to our newsletters. This will be in the copy of the presentation that you get, and you can there's a symbol there that you can click on, and or the link to that, and sign up for either our resources newsletter or what's called the NC Squared, or North Central Concrete Consortium news. So with that, I'm starting to stumble around there, and I'm actually done.